In this video, we're going to talk about how to set up event tracking from a website. So events from a Google Analytics perspective is clicks, sometimes page views, but you can track page views much simpler in other methodologies, especially in Google Analytics. You can just set a goal. But when it comes to clicks, like if you're wanting to track somebody clicking a telephone number, like this one right here, or clicking on this event that then takes to a page that you don't have control over, like another client or a partner or a JV or something like that, you need to track the click event. So we do that using Google Tag Manager. It's not the easiest thing to set up. It is more advanced, and I don't recommend doing it as a default way to track because there's a lot of ways to get false clicks. So you have to keep that in mind. A true conversion would always, in my mind, involve a page load. So hitting a thank you page is a much better way to confirm a conversion than someone clicking, because especially on mobile, we click all sorts of things and then realize we clicked the wrong thing and hit the back button. And it's not a true conversion. It was an accidental click. There's also bots out there that'll click anything in the world. So I don't recommend this as your default way to track conversions. It's only when you, like in this case, they're sending traffic to URLs that they don't have control over for this client, and we want to track the clicks. So on this page, what we're tracking and what we want to know is, are they hitting any of these event buttons? Are they clicking on any of these telephone numbers? And I'm just realizing the number on the screen is a little different. They're using call tracking. So the number on the screen we see here is different. I'm looking at the bottom left-hand corner of what the actual link is. Yep, so that one's right, but this one is a call tracking number. And then this is actually going to a totally different website. These are going to Eventbrite. Technically that's trackable, but for this purposes, we're just going to use event tracking. So in Tag Manager, you have to get the actual tag script on we just put it globally on your entire website. Don't think about putting it on specific pages. That's just going to cause headaches down the road. Just put it everywhere. Once it's on the site, and you're done. The first thing I'm going to do, so in this case, you have to plan out what are you tracking, where are you tracking. I'm going to ultimately track everything in Google Analytics. And then from Google Analytics, I'm going to set up goals. And from goals, I'm going to pull it into Google Ads. But we also need to track on Facebook. So I'm going to set up the triggers first and then set up the tags. And the tags are going to go to Facebook and Google Analytics. And then from Google Analytics, it gets pulled into Google Ads automatically. Actually, you have to do it, but it's much simpler. So I want to set up the triggers. Now, these are the triggers, like if they do something, what's the actual triggers? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name these, just so we keep this straight. We're going to call it Open Enrollment. And then I'm going to say PGIA and event page. And you'll see why I'm going to name that appropriately. I opened this page here just to grab that URL, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set up the trigger. So I just want it to be a click. This is my trigger type that I'm working with today. And oops. I'm going to do, we don't want to do all elements. You can do that. And then if you're unsure, and then you have to go back and kind of weed out the ones you don't want. In this case, I'm just going to do all clicks. So I'm just going to do some link clicks. I need a new variable, link. So by default, the variable is only page URL. That's not actually what I want. I want link click URL, but there's different URLs in here. There's form URL, page URL, video URL. I want click URL. I want it to look at what the link is that they're clicking. I always say contains to be safe, because if you have an extra space or an extra decimal and you say equals to, it won't fire. So I always say contains to be safe. So that's that. The next thing I want to track is this phone number, and this is the actual phone number looking at the bottom. So I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to do new, and I'm going to name it the same. So open in, oh, that's why I couldn't spell enroll. PGIA phone number. This is going to be links again. This is going to be the click URL. I actually want to get rid of those decimals. So you can leave it like that, or you can do the tell. Like if I go back here and I look at the bottom of this page, it is tell plus and no spaces. So technically it would have to be, this is exactly what it looks like on this page down here, down in the bottom left-hand corner. You can't see the one edge, sorry. There you go, tell plus and then the phone number. So, and again, contains, I'm going to hit save. I'm going to rename this because it's now bothering me because I can't spell and talk at the same time. Okay, so that's how you do that. I'm going to pause this and create the other. I actually have to create these two, and I have to create these three. Okay, so I have my trigger set up. I didn't have to create an open enrollment SHA phone number because it's the same phone number as the PGIA. When you hover over it, that's what we see on the screen is not what the actual link is. So those are our triggers. I'm actually going to submit them and just be done with it. Now we have to set up our tags. So going back, we're going to do new. So we're going to set up tags for all Google Analytics, and we're going to set up tags for all the trigger, or for Facebook for all 6 triggers. So there's going to end up being 12 tags, which is long. So I always do it like this. Discard changes. So I don't want to actually like copy all these. So, right. So I'm going to open this up. I like to copy it. Go over here. So GA is Google Analytics. If it was Google Ads, I would do this. That's not. The tag configuration, we have to set it up the very first time. We're going to do, in this case, an event, not a page view. We're going to call the category phone, click, and just leave it like that. We need to set up a new variable, which is going to be the Google Analytics property settings, the actual ID number. I put it in here. I put the tracking ID in there. And I save. And then the trigger, I'm going to pick the exact same one as I did before. There's the phone number. So this should match that, and it does. And it's a phone click. In this case, I'm not going to, but with the event pages, I can give more information and call the label which actual label. So because this information is going to end up going into Google Analytics in the events. So when you go into here, you'll start to see data. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to create the next one. So this is the event page. So instead of calling it phone, I'm just going to call it event. Click. In this case, I'm going to actually call it the PGIA. So PGIA. And I already selected the right trigger, and I can hit save. Oops. And it told me I need to pick which Google Analytics account I'm using. So then I'm there. So I'm going to go through and create the next 4, and I'll come back. Okay, so those are created. I'm going to submit. So just because you create them doesn't mean they're live. Submitting makes them live. Now, normally once you would have all this set up, you would then go into preview mode, which is right here, and test it. I can't do that yet because the client actually hasn't put the code on the site. So if I test anything, it's not going to work. So I'll have to come back later to test it. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the exact same thing for Facebook. So I'm going to go into Facebook and I'm going to get the pixel and integrate it with Google Tag Manager. And then I'm going to leave that as a separate video and set this all up again.